2025 SGA presidential debate. Thank you all for coming. I feel weird facing this way when you all are back here. So hello, thank you all for being here. If you don't know me, I'm Danielle Eisenberg. I am the staff advisor to the Student Government Association and the moderator for this evening's event. So thank you all for coming. A couple of notes on community standards and how we're going to conduct our time together this evening. The goal of this evening's event is to educate the campus community on the values, platform, and ideas of each candidate for the Student Government Association president to inform your vote in the upcoming election. Tonight's debate will be conducted in alignment with the Student Code of Conduct, while also being an inclusive and meaningful forum for candidates to explain their ideas to improve the student experience. In alignment with Stevens Community Standards, we remind all candidates that the actions and statements are expected to be inclusive and not discriminate against any person on the basis of sex, race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender expression, or any other basis prohibited by law. Additionally, all responses should remain about candidate platforms and ideas, challenges within the SGA and Stevens, and their own personal experience. Any statements about individual students or other candidates are not allowed. Should a statement be made about another candidate against this guideline, they will have the opportunity to respond. We hope that this event is informative and fun to allow you all in the audience to get to know our candidates better. Do all of our candidates agree to abide by these guidelines? Perfect. So the format for this evening's event. So we will start with opening statements. Each candidate will be asked to define their objectives and intentions of their campaign for SGA president, and they will each have 3 minutes maximum to respond with their opening statements. From there, we'll go to questions on a variety of topics, which each candidate will have about 90 seconds to respond to each question, and these will include questions that were submitted by the student body. And then finally, we will have our closing statements where each candidate will have 90 seconds to provide any closing sentiments they would like to share. A note for each segment of tonight's event, a predetermined and randomized order has been selected for each question. Candidates will be asked to give their responses in the order announced for each segment. Are we ready to get started? Perfect. So we will start with our opening statements, and again, you'll have 3 minutes each, candidates, and we will be going in the order of Jalen, Arthur, and then Noah. So Jalen, when you're ready, we'll start the timer.
All right, can you hear me? Right, so hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come here or tune in on Zoom or YouTube. I just wanted to say I know this is a busy time. I personally wrapped up 3 exams this week, so genuinely thank you. My spiel. My name is Jalen. I'm a 3 out of 4 industrial and system engineering major, as well as a co-op student. I am running for SGA president because as an international student, Stevens truly has become my home. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Like every home, there's so many beautiful things on this campus, but there's also a few things that we could do better. Through my time here, I've been able to see this campus through many different lenses, either being a student supervisor in makerspace covered in grease and filament until 2 a.m., or being a mentor for Society of Women Engineers, a cabinet member on SGA, or a president of a cultural org trying to move the food line like my life depends on it. And honestly, just a fly student, like first unlimited income student who was trying to survive in this chaotic campus. And through all of that, there was one thing that echoed the most and I heard the most, which was the students' passion and voices and concerns. Throughout my time here, the amazing voices have never wavered. However, how they were reciprocated and heard did. I felt myself as though my voice was not heard as well as it could have in the context of SGA and the student government, which is why I decided to run. I feel as though bringing that into light gives me the commitment and inclusive leadership that I hope to bring to the SGA, specifically those voices that weren't heard and those ideas that can be turned into reality. So that's why I'm running, because I wish I had someone in the room who would be able to speak up for me when I need it.
Thank you. Arthur.
Hello everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight and to thank Danielle for moderating this debate. She works 9 to 5 normally. I'll be totally honest, Stevens was not my top choice. My dream in high school was to go to a school like Georgetown, study political science, economics, or history. Early in my first semester, I was having serious conversations with my parents about transfer. But slowly, things changed. My classes were interesting, I joined the Senate, and started to see a whole different side of Stevens. By the end of the semester, I was hooked. I was fully dedicated to the student government, and I became a duck for life. My dedication was noticed early. In my second semester, I was made the Assistant Vice President of Finance at the SGA. I communicated directly with almost every single treasurer on campus, consistently and constantly. Since January, I've served as the Vice President of Finance for the SGA, and was wholly responsible for the SGA's $2.7 million annual budget. My work kind of changed. It became a bit more strategic, a bit more leadership style. During my tenure, the club received 40% more funding fall over fall so far. The SGA implemented the renovation of the library's first floor, which has been greatly successful, and 3 then first years who joined my finance and are growing into mature, capable leaders. One of them being my running mate, Anushka. Through all this, the presidency has always been a distant thought for me. And over this past summer, I went through some serious soul searching, whether the role was right for me and whether I was right for the role. Being SGA president isn't easy, and it was hard to think that it would be my turn to step up into the role which I have looked up to people who have done great work in. By the start of the semester, I truly made up my mind to run for 2 very simple reasons. Firstly, I have a dream of what the SGA could be: productive, successful, a work hard, play hard environment where students can be turned into leaders and give back to the Stevens community. I can't walk away from that dream after 10% of my life or so. Secondly, I believe deeply in being of service. I've been imbibed with a need to be of use by my parents and mentors. I've been of service to all my communities growing up. After school, I want to serve my country, but right now I want to serve the student body the best I possibly can. Thank you.
No?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here, whether it's online, in person, and a special thank you to my family and everyone else who's watching this. My name is Noah Wachtel, and I'm running for SGA president as the suit guys, because I believe Stevens can truly be a connected community. To achieve this, Thomas and I sat down and came up with a simple yet powerful goal: student to all. Every student should have access to the people, resources, and opportunities they need to succeed. Too often, students feel disconnected from this facility, from administrators, or even each other, and that separation limits what we can achieve as a campus. I want to change that. I want to create a Stevens where communication is open and every student feels like they belong here. This campaign isn't about making small adjustments. It's about rethinking how we interact as a community and how we support one another. Together, we can build a Stevens that works for everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I came into Stevens as an outsider myself. I wasn't the person with a dozen leadership positions or years of involvement. I was a regular student who struggled to figure out where I fit in. And that perspective matters. It gives me a real understanding of what so many students feel every day, that despite how talented, intelligent, or driven you are, it's still easy to feel like you're on the outside of a campus system that should be supporting you. That's why I'm running, because I've lived the gaps that students talk about. I've seen how simple communication barriers turn into big frustrations, and how opportunities don't always reach the people who need them. My goal as president is to bridge those gaps, to bring students closer to one another, closer to faculty, and closer to the resources that make this campus thrive. This is our moment to reshape the Stevens experience, and together, we're ready to make it happen.
Thank you all. We'll be now moving into our questions portion of the evening. As a reminder, we'll let you know what order you'll go in. If at any point you need a refresher or a reminder of what the question was, please feel free to ask and we will provide that for you. So our first question is, what are your core values as a leader? How will these values be reflected in the way you lead the SGA and advocate for the student body? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Noah, Arthur, and then Jalen. So Noah, whenever you're ready.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What are your core values as a leader? And how will those values be reflected in the way you lead SGA and advocate for the student body?
My core values as a leader are, we want to communicate with every student. I know that my vice president brought this up last night, but we highly value communication. Another thing that we also highly value is feedback. These things are essential if we want to lead a team, and lead a team that's actually implementing change across students' lives. For communication, we're going to strive to hear everybody's opinion. And we want to be able to talk through those opinions as a group, as a team, with one goal, and that's connecting students to all. Again, with feedback, if we are to become president, we are running 2 feedback forms, SGA and student. These are going to be separate for what I think to be our good reasons, because I feel like sometimes the SGA wants something and the students don't necessarily understand it. So as a leader, we're going to bring those to the table as well. And those are going to be open 24/7, anonymous, for those that don't want to speak up.
Great, thank you. Arthur?
Cool. So I have 3 core tenets which I stick to whenever I'm leading any position. Firstly, I believe leaders need to lead by example. You need to lead from the front. I'm not going to ask any member of the SGA, any member of my cabinet to do something which I wouldn't be willing to do myself. I answer my emails till midnight. I'm not going to ask that of anyone, but effort, hard work, I'm not going to ask that of anyone without putting it in myself. Secondly, I don't believe there is such thing as a stupid question or obvious answers. People believing that there are stupid questions stops people from asking questions that no one's asked yet. And same thing for obvious answers. Sometimes people think that something has already been implemented because, oh my God, it's so obvious. That's oftentimes where the best ideas come from, because they're so simple, they've never been thought of. And finally, I believe in, and this is what I've been working on for the past year, is understanding every part of the job. On a boat, there's a lot of different positions. I'm a skipper. I drive when I sail, for context. Before I started sailing properly, I learned every single other position of the boat so I could help and assist everyone else. And I believe in that, and I've been doing that for the past semester so I can support every member of my cabinet during the course of next year.
Dan?
Right, so my main philosophy is active listening. I want to know why you joined SGA, why specifically Stevens, what is going on wrong in SGA in your life, and being there for you 24/7. I don't want to meet you in the middle, I want to meet you where you are. I want to show up for you when I can, even if it's inconvenient for me, just because you need that extra support. I currently have people showing up for me because they know I get nervous when I talk, and here I am. So, it's that philosophy. As for communication with the students, me and Sam hosted a town hall during our time here. We also created an anonymous forum for feedback, and us both sat down together and emailed every single person with a response back that had provided a name for us to give them advice. I CC'd everyone on every email that concerned their concern as well. That I found to be not only beneficial because I was able to get my voice and initiatives that I have been doing, as well as how I failed on certain initiatives and gotten feedback, but gotten the students' voices and opinions. When you say I want snack swipes back, but you don't know yet that snack swipes are coming back in fall because RHA was able to successfully do that, it gets a lot of students excited, and it gets a lot of students things they never really hear about on both sides, and that rebuilds the trust in the Y and SGA and student body.
Great, thank you all. Next question is, what part of your platform do you feel most passionate about and why? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Noah, Jalen, and then Arthur.
So my campaign is focused on 3 ideas, or it's a bunch of ideas grouped into one term, and that term is student to all. One of our primary focuses is going to be student-to-student interactions. We believe that's something that is highly lacking on campus, and I can go into my personal experience about last year. I can go on and on about that. And I can tell you about how I thought that I failed myself by not going to certain events or trying to figure out which clubs I wanted to be in or which club wanted me in it. And one of my focuses is to try to alleviate that for incoming freshmen. My running mate and I had similar issues. We would stay in the room often. We would go home on the weekends, and we weren't getting the most out of our Stevens experience, and I know that we're not the only ones that do that. So our primary goal is to re-engage student-to-student interaction. We have many policies on how we want to get that done. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Jalen?
Great. So our campaign slogan is Your Vision, Our Mission. What does that mean? We have 3 pillars that kind of go into it. One's cutting the bureaucracy, changing the no you normally get when you want to do an event to how can I do this? What can I change to get that to no to a yes? The second is connecting the campus, whether that's creating systems in place. I'm a system engineer, I have to say that. Or just doing communication and meetings and etc. My personal favorite is championing your voice. I think Sam said that yesterday. But for the sole reason of, I genuinely get so excited when one of my 3 children comes up to me and is like, I got an interview for a job, because we sat there and we prepped for hours about how to talk and how to do your resume well and stuff like that. Or if it's one of the senators that came to me after I resigned and was like, I want to do an initiative in middle school. All right, let's go. We went to the board of education in Hoboken. We were able to get background checks and start that process of going and helping out the Hoboken Middle School. Seeing the genuine excitement on students' faces when their voice is actually heard and something's done about it is just beyond exciting to me, and the whole reason I'm doing this.
Arthur.
So Anushka and I have 3 parts of our platform. It's accountability, transparency, and empowerment. And I think Anushka said this as well yesterday. My favorite is by far empowerment. I think that every leadership role I've ever had growing up was always about empowering others. In high school, I was a captain of my sailing team. I brought it back. It used to be dead. I empowered others to learn to sail. It was really fantastic. I was a managing editor of The Stoop my freshman year. I empowered writers by putting them in contact with the right people to get the story, get the scoop. And as a DPF and DPF, I've empowered clubs, I've empowered treasurers to do more events and the best events that ever happened to students. During my presidency, I wanted to empower students through student-faculty interaction and alumni engagement. I wanted to bring alumni back to campus so we start building those connections in industry. Student-faculty interaction so students can understand what's going on in their classes, feel they're connected to the school. I want to empower clubs through continuing to change the financial policy and bring that level of success that I've had in finance to student interests. And finally, I want to empower SGA members by connecting them to the right people, by making sure that every single senator knows that they are a leader, that they can get stuff done.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you all.
So for our next question, students often feel disconnected from SGA decisions. How will you make sure that student voice is heard and represented in initiatives and decisions pursued by the SGA? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Arthur, Noah, and then Jalen.
Cool. So yesterday, Anushka, if you guys didn't know, mentioned 2 things that we want to do in our first month. We want to establish a monthly newsletter which goes out to every single undergraduate with a summary of SGA initiatives, what budget, how we spend money, and upcoming legislation that's important. So like if we have like another divestment proclamation coming through. We also want to finally take responsibility for finishing the SGA website, making sure it gets done. But beyond that, I think a critical part of connecting to the student body is being active. I think that right now is the most active the SGA is on campus because people are out and trying to get votes. And that's an issue. We need to be everywhere. We need to have senators going to first-year experience courses so that first years know that the SGA exists. They can come and talk to us. We need to be going to clubs when we think that there's a club which might be particularly relevant to an upcoming initiative, like Steven Signs with U-Base right now. When you go into that club, make sure everyone at that club knows that we're participating, that we're helping them, that we're assisting. I think that the key part is maintaining a high level of tempo and actually being with the student body, not for the whole year, not just for just 2 weeks of the year.
No.
Before I start, what does that purple paper say? I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on.
30 seconds.
Okay, all right, perfect. And can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I can. So students often feel disconnected from SGA decisions. How will you make sure that student voice is heard and represented in initiatives and decisions pursued by the SGA?
Great. So one of the policies that I have thought of and my vice president and I have talked at length about is having an Instagram that is solely focused on what the current administration is doing, where we release weekly, bi-weekly, any kind of information that can potentially be given to students. We want it out there. We also, like I mentioned before, we're having a feedback form. If you don't like anything that's on our website or on the Instagram, go to the feedback form and tell us. It's anonymous. There's no reason to be afraid to express your opinion. We take feedback very seriously, and we know how difficult it is for some people to speak up. So we want to do that, and we want to have the Instagram.
Thank you. Jalen?
Danielle, I'm gonna make you sound like a broken record. Can
Yes,
communication-
one more time. Students often feel disconnected from SGA decisions. How will you make sure that student voice is heard and represented in initiatives and decisions pursued by the SGA?
All right, I think students feel disconnected from SGA because there's just a bit of lack of trust and lack of understanding of why SGA does certain things. Yes, sometimes it's a block from administration. Yes, sometimes it's senators saying no to something. You need to know about that. It can't just be like, oh, SGA said no. There needs to be a why. So one of the ways we're doing that is through the town halls. After each town hall, we plan to work with the student SITV, first of all, to broadcast the town hall for you, for the people that are currently on there. It's more accessible, you can do your homework. But as well with the Stu, it's way easier for you to pick up a newspaper and read about it, they're everywhere, than get another email in your inbox. I personally, as someone who sends out newsletters, I see the data. It's not the best. I think that is one way we can get it out more. The second is by consistently being there. And whether that's to club events, whether that's connecting different advisory boards to each other to get students' academic concerns, whether that's talking to the Career Center consistently to get different career advice and career concerns. Doing that and showing you, if you're a student that complained about something specifically, exactly what's going on, and kind of bringing you into those meetings is why we think, how we think we can address the communication and lack of trust and transparency within SGA.
Thank you. The next question is, what does ethical leading look like to you? And how would you hold yourself and your cabinet accountable to represent the student body? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Jalen, Arthur, and then Noah.
Perfect. All right. So ethical leadership to me means listening to every single word you have to say, no matter how stupid you think it is. I probably said stupider. So listening to that, kind of, if someone's like, I don't think we should be doing that, we probably shouldn't be doing that. Listening to different opinions and different perspectives. I myself bring a different perspective as SGA. Sam has a different perspective as SGA. Our cabinet probably will have all the diverse opinions. Ethical to me also means no yes man. I don't want you to sit down and be like, oh my god, that was a great idea, when I know it wasn't. I need you to tell me no, you need to refine this, you need to do this, you need to fix that. Because if we're not all committed to one idea, then I don't want it. I don't think it would be necessarily ethical, and I think the lack of showing you our logic and our process behind every decision we make is one way that transparency and ethics can get a bit mixed up.
Great, thank you. Arthur.
Cool. So my thought process of ethical leadership, and I've experienced this a lot as UPF, is what's the moral drive of the SGA? What's the objective, right? And I think that the objective is, at the end of the day, supporting all students, being there for everyone. And I think that we have a lot of rules in the SGA. The rules are guidelines. A lot of things are guidelines. We're here to support the SGA, support all students across the SGA. I think that's pretty, across the student body. I think that's pretty critical. So as long as we keep a moral center, moral drive of what's the goal here, supporting all students, I think we're in a pretty right spot in general. And then I think broadly, it's beyond having a moral drive, it's also, are we doing something wrong? I think ethics is not that hard. I think people really know when they're doing something wrong. And if we're doing something wrong, if someone's being hurt for any reason, why are we doing that thing? Let's correct ourselves. I think that's pretty important.
No.
Ethical leadership, to me, is going to be not only listening to everybody's opinion, but also cross-checking them with moral guidelines, basic moral guidelines, and also the rules. Like Arthur said, they're guidelines. They are. But also, some of those guidelines need to be a little bit more strict. And ethical leadership means maintaining the rules as well to a certain standard where they make sense and they work. Right now, I'm not going to comment on current SGA affairs because I am not the most knowledgeable on current SGA affairs. But what I am going to say is that we want to make some significant changes to these rules. I'm not going to go into specifics, but back to ethics An ethical leader, and the way that I would demonstrate that is by adhering to those rules and listening to everyone's opinion, no matter how strong they are about it or how weak the opinion actually they are about the opinion. That's how I do it.
Thank you. So the SGA has historically struggled to retain senators and at times students in leadership roles. How will you keep members engaged and committed throughout your term? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Jalen, Arthur, and then Noah.
Okay, this was probably one of my favorite things when I was in SGA cabinet. So, senator retention, big reasons why senators left. I did exit interviews with every senator that left, just to kind of understand why. It gave me a lot of insight into what rules might have needed to be changed, how we should have followed up with them a bit more, or what they needed. That is one way, the offboarding process, if you will. The second kind of is the onboarding. When you come into SGA, there's a lot of nuances and bills and Robert's rules. I didn't know that I have to do this and this and this like every 5 seconds to say to the point. I thought I can raise my hand and it would be fine. A lot of senators, when they first came into SGA, had the same mindset. They didn't want to read a 60-page CSI bill, Committee of Student Interest bill. They didn't want to read a 30-page budget bill. Fair. You kind of have to, but it's kind of the point of someone sitting down with you, leading you through it, asking you questions, and helping you out as much as they can. The third thing would be coffee chats. I love taking out the senators to coffee and understanding why exactly they joined and why they want to do a certain initiative or a certain thing. It also helped me kind of pinpoint them to certain things that they needed. In my cabinet, I planned if a senator expressed interest in a certain agenda item, to bring them in, tap them on the shoulder, and be like, hey, do you want to come listen to this and see how this functions and how it works? So you can have a better understanding and kind of enjoy the SGA a bit more when you see it work as a whole.
Thank you. Arthur.
Awesome. So, retention of senators, retention of leadership positions. So first things from senators, I think a lot of senators leave because they don't feel as if they're doing very much. I think that's fair, and I think it's because senators do not feel empowered. I mentioned this earlier. I think senators don't feel empowered these days because we have grown really reliant on the assistant vice president position and its proliferation. It's meant that senators don't feel as if they're genuine leaders. So I want to change that. I want to focus a lot more on leadership development. I want to make every single senator know what they should be working on and how they should be working on those things. I want to change the culture on the SGA office. My first semester as a senator was the first semester where senators actually had access to the office. Before it was only cabinet, committee chairs. And I remember my first semester, I made so many friends in there because people were always in there the whole time. And I think that making sure that people are in the office, hanging out, actually having a good time is pretty critical. Finally, like Jalen mentioned, I think one-on-ones are super huge. I don't think we do enough of them. I try to do at least 1 to 2 a week minimum. And when I have free time, I try to do one every single day. And I think the entire cabinet should be doing those fairly consistently.
No?
So, I'm going to be completely flat out honest here. I don't have any experience in the Stevens SGA. And that is why some might even consider me unsuited to answer this question. But I have spoken to former SGA members who have left. I have had sit-down conversations with them, and I have talked at length about why they have left the SGA and about why they think that it is not doing its purpose. And some of these reasons are, their initiatives are not getting enough attention. There are certain senators who have proposed these great initiatives, and they were saying that they didn't get enough attention for them, and that they weren't taken seriously. And part of that is to do with, the upper guidance, and part of it is to do with there were other more, realistic initiatives that could have been taken on that were taken on. And another thing is that they had different ideas about how the SGA should be run. And as a senator, they didn't think that their ideas were valued, whether that's coming from different programs. I'm not going to get into specifics, but coming into different programs and under different chairs as well.
Thank you all. So this has come up casually already, but student-faculty interaction is both a strategic goal of the university and has been a priority for the SGA over the last few years. How will you continue to these efforts and expand upon what's already been done to connect students with faculty both inside and outside of the classroom? So for this question, we'll be going in the order of Arthur, Jalen, and then Noah.
Awesome. This is actually something which I've been thinking a lot about this semester, and I think it's a little bit nerdy, so I don't always bring it up. But from the very beginning of the semester, I started meeting with a lot of administrators. I met with the deans of the schools, or have reached out to them, and we're going to set up a meeting soon. Associate SES Dean Kevin Liu, Senokuma, David Zhang, several other administrators and faculty across the schools. And one thing which kept coming up is that older faculty remembered the Student Faculty Alliance. They used to be really big on campus for COVID, it went away during COVID. I think a critical part that we should be doing is bringing that back, having a lot of events on campus, or even off campus. They used to be golfing trips, that bring students and faculty together informally. I think having the formal one-on-one is a little bit tough to do, particularly since a lot of faculty members are a little bit introspective. Same with students at Stevens. So that's the first thing. And I think the next big thing is, well, just more in general. I think the more specific thing is we've got to get the favorites to kind of kickstart this culture, and then over time bring in the more hard to get faculty, and then over time we'll build good culture.
Jim.
Right, so I'm going to say this, and don't yell at me, but we are a nerd school. Half of us are really introverted, and that's understandable. That applies to our faculty as well. Most of them are alumni. The one thing I found that helped when we had these faculty interactions was coming together for a certain topic. So we started doing faculty dinners in the Society of Women Engineers. We'd go to Pie Kitchen, have 5 faculty, sit down and talk about cool stuff women have done. Amazing. I have never seen a faculty get so excited and engaged over something so minuscule as like their trip to Germany when they were in college and study abroad, and advising another Swede member about their trip to Spain for study abroad. And nothing brought them closer together than that, and it's something as simple as just one shared interest that they didn't know they had. But we were able to facilitate that connection because I was in a class with them and I heard them say that, or my president was in class and in office hours and she asked them a question. So it's something as simple as just talking to your faculty after class and saying, hey, what's up, goes a long way with them, and we will then be able to take that faculty, train them, understand what they want to do with the students to better facilitate that connection.
No.
So student to faculty interaction was actually an integral part of our campaign. We had it on our poster, that was Wednesday, I guess that was yesterday, oh my God. And we were talking about it at length with other students. So as a student from the outside, because that's really my perspective, we are aware that there is a student-faculty council, or however the SGA wanted to word it. And I gotta be honest, as a student, I feel almost little to no impact from that council. I'm not gonna say that they're failing at their job, but things could be done better. One of the ways that we had established to try to figure this out, and for lack of a better phrase, nip it at the bud, was to change a part of the first year experience course, or at least discuss changing a part of it. We want to make it sort of, I know it sounds controversial, but sort of mandatory for freshmen or first years to have to go to their professors and go to an office hour section. I see the sign, so I'm going to cut it short and say that it is sort of a nudge in the right direction to promote future facilitation of a relationship between student and faculty, and that's where we stand.
Great, thank you. The SGA oversees funding for student organizations and initiatives through the student activity fee. How will you ensure that financial decisions are transparent and equitable for all student groups? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Noah, Jalen, and then Arthur.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes, I can. So SGA oversees funding for student organizations and initiatives through the student activity fee. How would you ensure that financial decisions are transparent and equitable for all student organizations?
As I mentioned earlier, not to sound like a broken record, but one of our policies is going to be to have this Instagram or some sort of social media account where students can see exactly what the SGA has done over the past, X period. During this period, we're going to release what the budget committee approved, what the Senate approved from the budget committee, and that's what we're going to do. To make things more equitable, I gotta be honest, I don't have any experience in the field of, Arthur or anybody else that is in the Committee of Finance. So I won't be able to talk at length about how we're going to make these decisions equitable, but I can say that we are going to select the right person for the job of Vice President of Finance. Not saying that there's a wrong person, I promise. We're gonna make sure that there's a rigorous interview process for any cabinet member so that we get the right person. We're not just gonna put in our friends. That's how we're gonna make it equitable. And yes.
Okay.
Alright, so kind of how we mentioned before that the town hall is be a space where we tell you what we did and what we did wrong. Finance is a big part of that. So putting up a pie chart, putting up any financial model that your heart desires, with all the data of what we've approved, what we disapproved, and why we didn't approve those orgs, or did we come to a conclusion about that, how we thought about it. We're gonna put those to as well, since they're everywhere, as well as across the SGA duck link and website and Instagram. Second thing is the minutes and the dockets. They are already approved in the minutes and the dockets. However, how the current meeting minutes are structured, the docket isn't public. It's really hard and it gets lost in a lot of red tape and a lot of ambiguous files. So that's one way for the transparency part of it. For the equity part about it, as a president of a cultural org, food is really expensive as a cultural org. So we want to create a supplementary cultural food fund, because food isn't just food in a cultural org, it's part of who you are and your identity. And that is one way we think would be a bit more equitable in this term of the term of cultural orgs and so on. So,
Can you ask the question again, please?
Yes, I can. The SGA oversees funding for student organizations and initiatives through the student activity fee. How would you ensure that financial decisions are transparent and equitable for all student organizations?
So this is what I'm doing right now, right? And I think that I totally agree that things could be better. Things can always be better. And I think the first step is feedback. Whenever I send out a big email to every treasurer on campus, I always say, hey, shoot me an email with any thoughts you might have on how we can do things better. A lot of changes are coming out of that. And I think continuing to do that is pretty critical. So that's more of like transparency, just like treasurers understanding that they can tell us what they want to change. I think that's step one. I think step two is, I think we've all been mentioning a lot of transparency ideas, so I'm not touching on that too much. In terms of equity, I think equity is hard right now because we're at a really weird point where organizations are requesting more money than ever, but we're still left with a surplus. So I think we're in a really weird spot right now where equity right now just means making sure that everyone is getting what they want and that they can actually request. They understand that they can request as much as they want. And I think maybe a year or two from now, something really ought to start thinking about adjusting the rules a little bit more to prioritize maybe something. Maybe like I think the cultural change is a great idea. But I don't think we're quite at the point yet where we need to like be changing the rules drastically to require equity. I think we're in a great spot financially.
Thank you. Experience and engagement with the staff, faculty, and administration is an integral part of being SGA president. What experiences do you have working with campus offices, staff, and/or faculty that would benefit you in this role? So for this question, we'll be going in the order of Jalen, Arthur, and then Noah.
Sam was kind of jumping off his seat because the past week I've been on Zoom from 12 to 4 every day, being on the search committee for the head of the Career Center. What that meant was I got to customize exactly how the head of the Career Center would start interacting with the students from now on, whether that be connecting and bridging professional orgs with the Career Center, helping expand co-op to business students as well, not only engineering students, and kind of just general communication and overhauling of kind of what the position meant beforehand. So that is one way I was involved. I also live on the second floor. I think Danielle has seen my face too many times and heard too many rants that she shouldn't have heard. So kind of consistently being there, having those meetings, and having a voice. Like the administration is working with you, working with you. You need to tell them what's going on. Yes, SGA is supposed to bridge that gap. However, if you don't tell us, you don't tell them, we wouldn't know what's going on. So kind of consistently being there, meeting with those people, whether that's Career Center, OSL, Office of Student Life, or just going to Eve Riskin, the Dean of Academics, and being like, hey, my course stock and scheduler sucks. My workday, I can't figure it out and I need help, is one way like we plan to do all of that.
Arthur.
Cool. I think that it's a critical part of being president is having connections across the university. When someone has an initiative idea which requires university buy-in, it's generally the president or one of the VPs who makes that connection. This is a list of people who I've met with or worked with this semester. It's a pretty long list, and it stretches across academics, alumni, student wellness, finance, student affairs, athletics, facilities. I've done my work. I've put in the effort of reaching out to people, telling them, hey, I'm running for SGA president. I want to work with you guys. How can we work together? That's the first thing. The second thing is, in terms of what I've already been doing of working, I sit on several committees. I sat on the CFO search committee for the new CFO, similar to what Jalen is doing right now. I sit on the undergraduate studies committee and the academic operations and affairs committee to make sure everyone at the highest level of academics knows student concerns. There was a discussion recently about removing the observer role out of Canvas entirely, which would mean that for the first 2 weeks of school, if you had to switch into a class, you couldn't be in Canvas, and I fixed that, so we're chilling. I also sit on the MSCHE Standard 6, which is reaccreditation. So I work with high-level administrators through that, and I'm very happy to say that this is something which I'm already working on. The student voice, I project the student voice at the highest level of administration already, and I'll continue doing so.
No?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I can. Experience and engagement with the staff, faculty, and administration is an integral part of being the SGA president. What experiences do you have working with campus offices, staff, and/or faculty that you think would benefit you in this role?
So the question is about experience, and as sort of the new guys, we have been working our hardest. There's another phrase I can say that I'm not going to. We have been working our hardest to try to get some of these connections established. We met with you recently. We have meetings scheduled for the next 2 weeks. We're literally jam-packed with meetings, whether it's Dr. Sarah Klein or whether it's Dean Ken Nielsen tomorrow. We have many meetings set up to try to get these connections in place. And we're only sophomores. We are still trying to make a name for ourselves on this campus, and we think we're doing a decent job at it. And to the extent of experience, I can say that we are still gaining it. And we believe that this experience over the next, course of the next few months is really going to get us in a great position to start making the changes that we want to make, especially to student to faculty interactions.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite questions submitted to our form that we sent out before the election. So get ready, it's a fun one. If Stevens were a salad, what ingredient would you be? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Jalen, Arthur, and then Noah.
Interesting. I think it'd be the lettuce. I think I'd be the base. I think it would be the one with the most sustenance, the one that is holding up the campus together and connecting all the pillars and being there consistently, I guess, to make the salad what it is.
Thank you. Arthur.
I actually talked a lot about this with Alex because this wasn't asked last year at the presidential debate, and so I've been thinking about my answer for this for a year now. And I'd say I'd be a very light vinaigrette. In the sense that I want to be kind of omnipresent, I want to understand what's going on, but I also want to support everything, and yet not overpower. And I think that's kind of what I want my role to be when I'm in the SGA, and it's kind of what I want to be my role to be across campus.
No?
It's funny, as Arthur was speaking, I was writing, we would be the dressing. So I agree with that statement. We would want to be what brings everything sort of together, and we want to add our own unique flavor to what already exists. We want to be that, we want to be the people that when you think of Stevens, you think of Thomas and I. We're approachable, we listen to everybody, we really care about everything. And being the dressing would mean that we would be an integral part of everything. So we would want our hands pretty much in everything, and that's what our policies are really about.
Great, thank you all. When a member of the student body hears the word SGA, what is the first thing that you would want them to think of during your term as president? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Noah, Arthur, and then Jalen.
So when we were getting our signatures, which, at first it seems like a pretty daunting number. You've got that 205 signatures. It's like, whoa. when we were getting our signatures, this was something that actually came up a lot in a question. It was, what does the SGA do? You know, who are these people? And our answer to that was, at the time, they're the people that control the club funding and get things done. We would like to be known for something different. We want to be known as the bridge. We want to be known as the bridge connecting students to everything, hence our campaign slogan, Student to All. We want to help in every single aspect of life at Stevens. Whether it's your student to faculty, whether it's you engaging with each other, or whether it's new traditions that we're going to create together. That's sort of the root of the answer to the question. And that's what we want people to think of when they hear SGA.
Okay, thank you. Arthur?
When people think of SGA, I want the first word they think about to be help. Whenever anyone on campus has any issue, whether it be with clubs, whether it be with academics, engagement, even getting a job maybe, I want them to think of the SGA as a resource for them. I want them to think the SGA can help. They will help. They're there for me. And I think that's just pretty critical. Just making sure that everyone understands that the SGA is a supportive group. If you're 40 students, is what I want people to understand.
Jane?
Kind of echoing Arthur's point, I want them to also think about comfort. I want you to come to a Senate meeting and not get scared because you're speaking with 40 people that you don't know. I want you to be able to come to me and Sam randomly on campus and say, hey, I got a job, or I didn't get a job and I need help, or I couldn't schedule my classes, and how can we do this? I want you to think reliable, someone that your email won't sit in my inbox for 2 weeks and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and if not me, someone will get back to you as soon as possible with that connection, that bridge, or that help that you're looking for. So kind of just consistently being there and a reliable source, or like a shoulder to cry on when you need it, is what I want you to think about.
And this will be our last question of the evening before our closing statements. Making positive change to an institution is rare unless you're willing to accept the change yourself. Can you provide an example of a time that your mind was changed following criticism, feedback, or a challenge to your beliefs? For this question, we'll be going in the order of Jalen, Noah, and then Arthur.
First thing that comes to mind is me running as SGA president. To be quite frank, I resigned from the SGA because I didn't feel like I had my voice heard. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do it on my own. That's exactly what I did. Started doing initiatives on my own with different administrators and different students, not necessarily behind the voice of the SGA. It wasn't until 2 weeks before nominations were open that my mind switched, because I kept on hearing the voices of students, and I kept on having people come up to me and be like, why aren't you running? You should run. And it wasn't until one of my friends sat me down and was like, Jalen, come on. Like, it's 2 weeks out, can you please just say you're running? Can you please start thinking about this? That I genuinely sat myself down and I was like, okay, maybe I should. Like, I'm already doing it. I love the job. I love the work. I want to help the students. Why not? And that's kind of one of the biggest changes I think I've gone through recently. And frankly, one of the ones I'm most proud of. Win or lose, this was a great experience, and I'm excited to continue helping the students in whatever shape or form I can.
No?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. Making positive change to an institution is rare unless you're willing to accept change yourself. Can you provide an example of a time that your mind was changed following criticism, feedback, or a challenge to your beliefs?
So, this criticism was at the beginning of the year. I had my mindset on, I want to run for SGA president, and these are the reasons why. And I didn't necessarily have a huge group of friends. I come from a small town, we stuck close together, and now we're at this whole new school, and I knew like 4 people. I was standing outside by pure coincidence, and I was next to my friend. And my friend says to me, hey Noah, there's an event going on in Bissinger. You want to come with me? It was for Meet the Greeks. I had never thought that I would ever be in Greek life or fraternity or anything. And he says, you don't know anybody, come with me, it'll be a great experience. So I went with him reluctantly. I met wonderful people from a wonderful fraternity, and I picked a big who happens to be Jalen's running mate, and I think that's very funny. But this has definitely changed my life for the better. I mean, the people that I've met, the things that I've done, and the things that I've been able to do, I don't think I would have been able to be here without going to that event. So this definitely changed my life, and that is something that I'm willing to open up about and open to more people.
Can I add a comment? I'm so happy that you're his big because I get Thomas as a little.
Great. Arthur, to close us out.
One more time.
Yes, of course. Making positive change to an institution is rare unless you are willing to accept change yourself. Can you provide an example of a time that your mind was changed following criticism, feedback, or a challenge to your beliefs?
I'll be honest, this is a really tough one. I just spent the last 3 minutes thinking it through and had a hard time. And I think that the greatest advice that I've been given recently is about leadership. I have a very much do-it-all mentality. I have a hard time letting things go. I have a certain amount of loudness. I like to be heard. I like to be one in the room which instructs, which points the way. And I think that one of the things which I was trying to work on a lot over the course of the semester, it was highlighted to me by Nick Smith a few weeks ago, former president. And it's the idea of leading through, not influence, through kindness. And I think that's pretty critical. I don't think that I'm not necessarily always the kindest person. I want the best for everyone, but I don't always come across that way. And I think that's something which I've really been working on, is just being nicer, just like working with people instead of having people work for me.
Thank you. And thank you all for your answers to all of the questions this evening. So now we'll be heading into our closing statements. This statement is a time for candidates to give their closing thoughts on tonight's debate, their campaign, or anything else they feel like they haven't had the opportunity to share that they would like to round out the night. You'll have 90 seconds to give your closing statement. For our closing statements, we'll be going in the order of Arthur, Jalen, and then Noah. So Arthur, whenever you're ready.
I think this election is pretty important. I think this is a very critical time in the SGA. I think the next year of SGA would be seminal in the sense that we have a lot of young leaders who are stepping up into their third year soon, and that's really when things start to get serious in the SGA, when we start spending 30, 40 hours a week on it. I think that leadership of the SGA requires understanding what goes on in the SGA. That's why I'm running, because I think that I want to lead others, because I've been led by great people myself. And I think that Anushka and I bring a level of proven competence that is hard to beat. And I hope that this debate showed that. And I hope that everyone votes tomorrow. I think that it's important to vote no matter what. I'm a strong believer in the democratic process. So even if you don't want to vote for me, I encourage everyone to vote because it's important.
Jalen.
Right. I have the opposite belief. I think the president of SGA is someone who should know the voices of the students, not necessarily the voices of SGA. Should know what exactly the students need, not policies. You can learn those stuff easily. You can't learn how to listen and hear a student's voice. At the end of the day, this election isn't about titles and personalities and who has the best Instagram page. It's about who will advocate for you, who will listen to you, and who do you trust to take your vision to as far as it can go, who can echo your voice as loud as it can stretch. I'm running for president because I know what this campus can be when you put your all into it, when you put your students first, when RAs feel heard, when athletes have the resources and abilities they need, and the student engagement and support they need to win their games, when STEP students have the finances and the funding and the attention they require to be able to actually enrich themselves and be better students, when community students have spaces to exist and breathe and take a breath after class, it just goes to show how amazing this campus can be when you listen, take the time to talk to people and catch your breath and trust the process and trust the SGA again.
No.
Both those speeches mentioned at the end of the day. I would just like to extend that metaphor to at the end of our college career, because even though this is a presidential election, at the end, I'm still planning to serve every student that I possibly can. And that starts either with the presidency or it starts after not getting the presidency. I know what it's like to be on the outside looking in. That's been my whole college experience so far. And I know how powerful it can be when someone takes the time to bridge that gap. That's the leadership Thomas and I are offering. And if you believe Stevens is ready for a student government that listens, that communicates, and brings the voices of people together, instead of leaving them behind and focusing on a select few, then we would be honored to earn your vote. Let's take this moment, this opportunity, and build a Stevens where every student feels like they truly belong. Student to all, let's make it real.
Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for all of our candidates? So thank the three of you first. It takes a lot of courage not only to be up there and answer questions that you don't know what they're going to be coming at you, but to run for the SGA president position, because it does take a lot of time and effort and care for the community, and I think we can see through your responses tonight that you all show that in different ways, which is really great. And thank you all for being here tonight. It really shows that you all are also invested in your experience here at Stevens, to know about and be involved in who your leadership is to represent you at this institution. I hope tonight's event helped you all gain insight into what our presidential candidates hope to accomplish in this role if selected. As a reminder, voting will be open beginning tomorrow, Friday, November 14th, and it will close next Friday, November 21st at 12 p.m. The link for voting will be sent to your emails and can also be found on DuckLink. Thank you all for attending tonight's debate. If there's still food remaining, we encourage you to stay, to eat, to chat. I'm sure our candidates will be sticking around as well if you have any questions, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.